I'm going to start recording this meeting. We are going to record it for posterity, for those who couldn't make it, and we'll make sure we put it up on our YouTube channel in a couple of days time. Give me 1 second. Just going to let my dog had snuck in, and he was going to stay here and start barking to get out. So I want to thank everybody. We're obviously in the home stretch of 2019-20. I think it goes without saying that the last dozen or so weeks have not been without their challenges. We'll be at the 3-month mark by the time this week ends on the 13th. I just want to, really begin by saying that the work that this community really has done in pulling together for our kids, for our students, for our seniors, for our staff, and vice versa, has really been something I appreciate greatly. I know I speak for the entire staff. I think we've all got a new appreciation, myself included, for a lot of what our educators do on a day-to-day basis. And so I just want to lead off by saying thank you to all of you parents out there, guardians, who have helped keep your students on point and engaged with us, despite the challenges that have no doubt been hallmark of these last few weeks. It has been quite a whirlwind, and we're not out of the woods entirely yet. We'll do our best to address as many of what we can at this point tonight, as we head into the final weeks of the school year, and also to kind of give you a sense of a little bit of where we're at with both wrapping up this school year and looking ahead to the summer. Hopefully everybody can still see the screen of the slideshow. At least Mr. Miller, give me a thumbs up if people are still watching the slideshow. Great. The parade last week was awesome. I know there are some parents of seniors in here tonight. I know there are some staff members from around town and around the buildings. Good timing for Mr. Loy, who is Mr. Loy is our senior class advisor, just joining in here tonight. The parade was just awesome. More than one person reached out to me afterwards to say, I hope we could do this every year. I think for the seniors, I think what made it all the more special this year was just how everyone had been cooped up for so long, and for us to get out and safely celebrate this class on what would have been their actual graduation day. It was a picture-perfect day. If you happen to see Uxbridge Police and Fire, the amount of work that they did to make the day entirely possible, the parents and the some of our other students, and just the community as a whole, all the way up to the big sign from the selectmen on right there on Main Street. I mean, it was really, really awesome. I know for Mr. DeMeglio and I, it was not without a pretty good sense of emotion when it was all over. Just truly, truly awesome. And something that I just wanted to really extend a hearty thank you to everyone for helping us with. There'll be a little bit about seniors tonight. There'll be a little bit about what we're planning for the next month or so, because I know there are a lot of things that people look forward to as far as celebrating off a class. But that parade could not have gone any better. So tonight we're going to talk about closing out this year. We're going to talk a little bit about where we're at with reopening for next year. And we're going to talk about how we've been really supporting all of our students, particularly over these last couple of weeks where we've had some rather unique challenges also facing us, if you've been watching the news. So I'm going to begin with a quick quote. It's an African proverb. I gave this to our faculty on Friday. If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. There are some things that right now we have to have go quickly, and that we're not really enlisting a lot of feedback, and we're not asking for a lot of questions or input or ideas from, but there are going to be some things that we're going to need to go much further with. So I share I share this quote because it kind of represented to me the sort of the parallel of the two paths that we're on. The one is looking further ahead and how far we want to go together, as well as some of the things that we really just need to get done that are very, very technical. And we're just going to try and wrap up as quickly as we can. So when we look at closing out this year, closing out this year for our students and our staff and grades, we're going to focus on some deadlines, some important dates, and some things that I think we feel like everybody can manage. As far as obligations, this week, any student who has something owed by the school will be emailed by the office with the specific item and a replacement cost if the item is missing. For example, a graphing calculator, a book from a library, a textbook that was consigned for. All of the seniors have already been notified. So this would be any students in grades 8 through 11. We'll be sending out messages probably on Wednesday or Thursday to all of the students that indicates what they're missing and what the replacement cost is if it can't be found. The reality is we have some things that people have that they may not even realize are missing. Usually in that department, library books, something that was checked out in March, went to the bottom of a pile in someone's bedroom or on their desk at home and never to have been given a second thought. We have pretty strong record keeping, I think, as far as these are concerned. Some things do turn up in our searches. We've had a few things that have been in like lockers that we've found or in the back of classrooms. But for the most part, these are things like textbooks or band uniforms, other sort of things that are definitely owed by the school. Now, we only ask that these get replaced with cash or check to replace the cost. Oftentimes, it's even easier to just go on a Barnes & Noble or an Amazon or a Target website and just purchase the item and bring a replacement for that item to the school. So we'll be sharing that out for the underclassmen in a couple of days. When we do pick up, and this is for next week, Monday and Tuesday, the 15th and the 16th, we have it done by alphabetical sort. We understand that sometimes folks can't meet those exact times. When you pull up, and this is also for the seniors tomorrow, if you pull up, you'll come right down the driveway to the building like normally. When you get to the like in front of the gym, where the gym and the staff parking lot, kind of like where the buses come, there'll be somebody standing there. We would ask that you have a piece of paper with the student's name, kind of like you're an important person at the airport. The student's name on it. Hold that up. We will radio to the front of the building, and you'll pull up to the front of the building. You'll stop at the front door. Someone will come out, and they will hand off anything that we have that belongs to that student, and we will collect anything that the student has to return to us. I know Mr. DeMeglio has been working with our custodial staff to make sure lockers have been checked. And for the most part, we have a pretty good listing of anything that was left behind. Mr. D, you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Right now, every locker in the building's been cleaned. What we did was we basically took the contents of the lockers and put them in bags and put a sticky label with your student's name on that bag. Believe it or not, we didn't have a whole heck of a lot in the lockers. Lots of kids just use their book bags and carry everything back and forth. And partly maybe they knew they weren't coming back for a little bit, so they emptied just before they left. Where we did have a few things, we found more or less things in the locker rooms, but we did clean those out. Did the same thing with those. Took the contents out, put them in bags, and we have them all set up, like I said, alphabetically. So we did take jerseys from, say, the track team or anything related to any team, and we have those separate already. And anything else, again, we put in bags and are ready to ship out. So there were some clothing items that were on the floor that there was no way of identifying whose items they were. If you have something that's missing in particular, call the school. Maybe we can search through a pile eventually when things calm down a little bit.
Thanks. And one of the questions was if you just have something to drop off, like a library book or a textbook or a graphing calculator. Yes, this is both drop off and pickup time. So if you pull up and you're just dropping off, you'll just drop off. And again, we have a pretty good, I think, process for both, and hopefully we'll be able to make this as quick and painless as possible. What if you can't find something that you owe? Contact us. We'll do our best to help you figure out what the replacement cost could be. Particularly if you're an underclassman and it's something that you feel like it's somewhere. You just need some time. We'll work with you, but just feel free to obviously email one of us, call one of the secretaries of the main office, and just let us know. And we can also give you a sense of this is what it could cost, or here's a place you can go to replace it. And again, here are the dates. The seniors are coming in tomorrow, grade 12, and grades 8 and 9 on the 15th, which is Monday, grades 10 and 11 on the 16th. And if you have different students if you have students in different grades, just pick a day. Just let us know. Obviously, if we're to be expecting you, we're not too worried about numbers, but if we'll go on the honor system, there's no need to give us a call. So if you can't make either day, I'm sorry, that's when you should just give us a holler, because we'd hate for you to show up, say, on the 17th or this Friday and not have anybody available to help you out. As far as closing out grades for this year, because we would have tomorrow technically would have been our last day of class. So we did have our last assignments due on Friday the 5th. That was the last normal due date. And right now we're into what we call, this is what we would call our exam week. However, with exams not necessarily having exams, what we're doing this week is basically students who are done, who have handed everything in, they're exempt from their exams, and our teachers are spending this week reaching out to students who owe us things, letting students know what needs to be done in order to pass classes for the year, and maybe giving a couple of extra, maybe a couple of assignments that need to be made up over the period of closure. We usually don't look back to first and second quarter, and we don't go back that far. So it would be times that we have for the last few weeks, and working through those makeup assignments, because our teachers' final grades are due on the 17th. Now, sometimes people will ask, what does that mean in terms of summer school? What does that mean in terms of final grades? We have tried to be really flexible with this period of remote learning. Ultimately, there will be some students who don't pass their classes because they've either done nothing or not been engaged. And beyond just these 2 or 3 months, but also going back before that. And our counselors will reach out with summer school information. We do use an online summer school. So, those who register through us, we would highly recommend it, because the other summer schools that that some of our students sometimes go through, some students have gone to Bellingham, for example, in the past. I believe theirs is also going to be running remotely this year. So I don't have that firm. That's not 100%. So we do tend to recommend that if students need summer school, they work with us. But we're going to try, obviously our staff and our families work together to try and get students over the hump. The reality is sometimes that doesn't happen. Or students who were held a carrot. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll look at the first half of the year and we'll say, hey, look, we'll pass you, or we'll give you a higher average than necessarily you earned, and let's see what you do in the second half of the year, and we can go back and look at some magic math to make sure you get over the hump. And then students don't necessarily do their part. It's a small number of students. but those are still out there. So final grades should be around the 17th. We will work on mailing out report cards shortly thereafter. We will not be, as part of the closeout this year, sharing out student schedules. We have in the past been able to at least give students a sense of this is what you are taking and this is what your classes will look like. But we still have a few things in flux between some hiring that we're doing and a couple of things that we have to look at in terms of room assignments for next year. So we'll hopefully be able to do that. Hopefully be able to share that in a few weeks, but more on that in a second. Some people have been asking and inquiring about reopening. And, the reality is for us, it's been a lot of we're waiting on state guidance. And the commissioner and the governor, we entered phase 2 kind of in full today from, a business standpoint. It has been said multiple times that schools are really among the last that will reopen in full. So the good news is numbers seem to continue to be declining. And while we're not necessarily entirely out of the woods, things are improving. The reopening for the fall, our superintendent, Dr. Tiano, who I know is out there somewhere, did put out a form for families and staff to fill out that will have for both a district and a school level that will help us work through logistics and planning and procedures and understanding sort of the impact on things. We have a number of parents who've already volunteered or signed up. Actually, probably a pretty significant number of folks. The bullets I want to focus on here are those two in the middle. We are looking to build a representative group. I know that can bring some different perspectives that can help us process some of the things we're thinking. But we also know that we're relying very heavily on the guidance from both DESE and our own Board of Health. And I think one of the things that we are really grateful for is that our Board of Health, in a word, is awesome. Dr. Black has been an incredible asset to our community and our staff, and she's been a great resource for us. Even as we've been planning graduation, she's been right there side by side. And we know we have a lot of questions out there about logistics and personal protective equipment and what the numbers need to look like and what does 6 feet really look like when you're entering the building and what are some of our academic needs, and we have our teachers working on all of these things. What are our social emotional needs? So we are firmly aware strongly aware of all of these things and really looking forward to, I think, after we can get 2019-20 closed out, starting to look in a little bit more earnest when we have more guidance of what this will look like for Uxbridge and relying on some of our friends from around the state and around the nation as far as best practices. I know Dr. Tiano is out there. I don't know if he wants to chime in on any of that because he did send out, it was his survey that was sent out last week. Are you out there, Frank?
I am out here, Mr. Rubin. How are you?
I am doing all right.
Sorry, I was a few minutes late getting on, but I think it hit the nail on the head with this particular slide, Mr. Rubin. This is going to be an amazingly complicated undertaking, not only for Uxbridge Public Schools, but for all schools. We have been working on a variety of different levels, working to close out school, working on what summer looks like, working on what next year looks like. As Mr. Rubin mentioned, we are relying heavily on guidance from Department of Elementary, Secondary Education and Department of Public Health. You mentioned Dr. Black and the Board of Health. We toured each office area today with the Board of Health and taking first steps of reopening our offices. Guidance has come out for our extended school year. And as of next week, the week of January 15th, we will have specific guidance for what our schools will look like next year. In order to do this work, I have put out a request for folks to spend some time with us to give us perspective. It's an advisory group. There are so many things to think about, and to be able to have the perspective of a parent, to have the perspective of a staff member. So at the ground level, you see the work that's being done, as well as provide input as we go forward. Those groups will be meeting at the school levels as well as the district level. We've involved our police, fire, who have been close allies with us from the get-go. They've been outstanding. So I'll be reaching out to folks. I've had 158 responses thus far regarding input from staff and from parents. And obviously we're going to have to whittle those numbers down. We'll be putting all our information on the website. There is a link to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, their COVID-19 page. Every piece of information that the Commissioner of Education puts out to us as superintendents and districts is on his website as well. So folks can follow along there if they're so inclined. Mr. Rubin, I turn it back to you. I hope that didn't take too long. I know you're
Nope.
you're doing a nice job here.
We're good. I think the other thing that, and just to kind of look ahead, we're looking as a school, just so families get a sense of what we're working at. Beyond just safety and procedures, we're looking at both the academic and the social emotional needs of the kids and our staff. So we're looking at our curricula, we're looking at instructional gaps, we're looking at habits and skills versus content knowledge, and that's actually been a conversation that we've been having as a school for a lot longer than the COVID-19 era. So I think this is where we are uniquely positioned to do well. We're looking at what planned interruptions could look like for us based on what we learned this year. If we're ever in a situation where we are remote, what does that mean, and what does that mean to our staff? What are the things we did well? What are the things that we could do better? And on the social emotional side, we really want to focus on challenges that we may or may not foresee. Students that are coming back to school, what are the staff needs as they come back to school? And again, we were focused on this as a goal of ours, and as a school improvement, a district improvement goal of ours before COVID-19. So COVID-19 gives us a little bit of a the coronavirus times give us a little bit of a unique lens at which we can look at social emotional needs and our academic needs, and another variable. But we were already working on this, and that's why I have a lot of confidence in our staff and our support staff to really be able to support our kiddos through this. So when we look for feedback and we look for guidelines, to go back to that proverb, there are times where we're going to go quickly and maybe go at things alone, but there are going to be some times when we're going to go at things and need to go a little bit more slowly. And as we do that and we need feedback, we also want to try and do what's best for everyone. We're not doing things that are best just for Uxbridge High School. We're doing things lockstep with Whiten and Taft, because I know some families have reached out to me and said, I'm worried about it because I have kids at different schools. And we also need to draw on what the state requires of us. That seems to be coming with more information now than it was necessarily back in the early days of March. But we also have some time, as opposed to March and April when we were trying to basically build the plane while it was still mid-flight. We feel good, I think, and confident. And as I said to the staff, and I'll say this to the community, I'll say this to our students, if we're the generals and we're trying to take a hill, we are not going to send anybody charging up a hill that we don't think we can take. We know that we will have a plan of battle, and we'll have a plan that will be tight, and it will allow us to be victorious. And it may not be a quick win, and I know people are accustomed to quick wins, but particularly in the Googling generation, but we will get there. And I have all the confidence in the world that our staff and our community can do this together, as should you. There are some other things that have been going on. I've had a lot of communication because, just because 2020 just because murder hornets weren't enough and pandemic wasn't enough and some of the other things that we've been dealing weren't enough. We decided that in the last week or so, we would throw on some real challenges in terms of social justice. And I'm deliberately talking about this tonight because it's of interest to the students. They have been reaching out to me. Some staff have been reaching out to me, and even some families have been reaching out to me. So I share this with you because we're not in Boston. We're not in a city. We're a fairly, let's face it, fairly homogeneous population out in suburban Massachusetts. And so some of our students are struggling to understand the magnitude of what's happening in the cities because it doesn't necessarily affect them on a day-to-day level. And they've shared that they're nervous because they watch the news and they don't quite understand. And then there are other students who are deeply committed to causes and want to know what they can do to help out and what can we do on a local level. For me, I grew up in a city. Mr. DeMeglio grew up in a city. I know Dr. Tiano grew up in a city. And so we're a little bit, I was a little bit more moved last week by what I was watching, mainly because, Boston to me was home. Those were streets and those are businesses that I had gone into. And if you read my comments that I wrote last week, I was pretty sad and I was not in a great place for a couple of days. And I think that goes for a bunch of our students too. But I'm going to stop talking for a second and say that, a picture's worth 1,000 words. And, I think that about summed it up for me, is that there's hope. I had a friend of mine who was involved in a protest last week who actually was there when this happened. And so this is a stock image from Google, but I was talking about it with some friends and he goes, oh yeah, I saw that. And I don't know if it was this exact moment, but there are lots of moments like this happening. And, I talk about like the partnership we have with our community and our public safety, and it's a good one and it's a strong one. And I know there are so many good people in public safety. I also know that there are some people in our community who feel very marginalized and hurt right now. And that's the line we're trying to walk, in that we know there are people who need our support. And we know there are some students who have been moved to action. As a school, I think it goes without saying that we want to treat everybody the same. We view every human being as a human being, and we treat everybody very equitably at our school, but we know that there are other people who are hurting. The outreach to us has come from people in the community, people from our staff who've had outreach from students, and some of your kids who have maybe reached out to us saying that they need help or they want to help. But it's been a pretty common theme. And I think I'm mentioning this now because we can't really stick our heads in the sand and we can't pretend like this isn't part of the world around us. And, our classes ended at a time where if we were in school, it would be easier to have these conversations with students because they would be in front of us. And so what we're going to do for you, for our community, for our parents, we have some resources from the National Association of School Psychologists on how to talk to students about what's going on in the world. That's not just what's going on in terms of some of the social movements, but also the pandemic, because under normal circumstances, the school year ends and we all sort of go our separate ways. And then we come back in September and everything is kind of refreshed. But this is a different kind of year because we are leaving with so much uncertainty about what's to come. And it's important for us, as I shared with our staff last week, it is so important for us to make sure that your students and our staff and ourselves are able to take care of ourselves while understanding the context of which we're in. There are kids asking me, hey, we're going to have a field hockey or a soccer season next year, right? And the only sport that right now I have real certainty that I'll be able to play is maybe golf. And even that, the MIAA has not come out with anything. And that stinks if you're a rising senior and you're looking forward to being a soccer player. I know I was a senior soccer player. I was already thinking about that when I walked out of school my junior year. And so with so much uncertainty and so much anxiety and so many of these different challenges, we know that some students may want to talk about things and some may not. It's a very natural defense mechanism for some kids to just become very egocentric. I'm sure there are some students out there right now who are quite used to being in charge of their own lives and telling everybody about it because they're at a certain age. But the reality is there are going to be some times where people are going to need us and our school and our resources, our counselors, they may not be there. And so we want to make sure that we give you some resources, some materials, and some feedback, some things, some options that may be helpful for you as we head into the summer. Because it is a very uncertain time. I do not do so well in gray. The superintendent will smile when he hears me say that, because we just talked about this literally within the last couple of hours. Last 10 minutes. I like to have answers. Mr. DiMeglio likes to have answers. Mr. Carboni, our athletic director, wants to have answers, and we don't have them right now. And so we want to be able to engage, continue to help you engage in conversation as the summer goes on, and help students pick a side and help students realize that we really don't want them to be neutral. We are working towards revamping some of our programming about things like bullying and cyberbullying and some things that maybe some people would prefer that we just pretend like we're blind to or pretend that aren't really happening, but they're happening. And so one of our biggest challenges that we have is getting students to stand up in a society where when something goes wrong, they like to say, well, I'm not saying anything. I don't want to be a snitch. I don't want to be a rat. I don't want this. I don't want that. And then, we're left with dead ends as we try to mitigate some of these challenges between peers. And that's something that we're going to hit pretty head on next year. And I just love the second part of this quote, which is, if the elephant has its foot on the tail of a mouse and you say you're neutral, the mouse won't appreciate it. And so that's one of the things we really need to focus on as a community to make things better. I am going to pause for some questions if there are questions. As always, feel free to email us. Feel free to email Mr. DiMeglio or me. Particularly if you're looking for something specific, if there's a particular resource or there's someone in the building that you think would be able to help you, in these next couple of weeks before the school year ends, and then certainly as we head into the summer. While we do go dark and we tend to give people time to be as a family and give students time to get to kind of recharge, we also do plan on continuing to communicate as best we can over the summer. Will yearbooks be handed out next week? Yes, that will be part of that pickup drop-off on Monday and Tuesday. We should have all the yearbooks. They were delivered last week, and we wanted to give them out to the seniors first, which is historically what we've done. So the seniors will get them tomorrow, and then we'll hand them out Monday and Tuesday. And if you can't make it Monday and Tuesday, just give us a holler. Mr. D, am I anything you want to add before I see if there's any more questions?
No, I think you hit everything. Tomorrow's a big day for the seniors. Make sure you come. That's really important. We have everything ready for you. Hopefully you get there. And if you can't get there, make sure you email us, either one of us, and let us know what's going on. We'll arrange for a time where we can meet you, figure out a time where we can get you the stuff that you need.
I am going to hit stop share here for a second. The other piece of this that some folks have asked that I didn't mention in here. Some folks had asked if we were going to have any learning resources or anything like that we're going to have over the summer to keep kids engaged. We did email out to the students today summer reading options. that went out to the students. It will go out to the families as part of our Friday news and notes later this week. There are also a few things here and there that sometimes as far as AP classes go, but we really want to try and give students and families an opportunity to recharge their batteries. There's a lot of ways to keep on learning without it being directed by a teacher. And I think it's important more so than ever right now for us to have everybody. This past couple months have taken a lot out of everyone, and we think it's really important for everyone to, as I said, recharge, rest, and reflect, and come back ready to go next year. What I'm plan on doing is continuing to periodically host these, and if I don't host them as like a live chat, minimally putting them out there as both podcasts and videos that you can watch on off our YouTube channel. I'll email the links because I know that sometimes over the summer people are keeping different schedules, but I will do my best to as we have more information, make sure that it's out there as quickly as we can. And I just saw a comment pop up. Yes, as soon as I know what we know, we'll be able to share it. And we want to be able to package information. I think that's the important thing, so that we're not letting out like, oh, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. I think what we want to be able to do is package everything and be able to tell people this is how it's going to be, and this is what we know, rather than doing it on a every couple of day basis, because literally some of the information we get changes every couple of days, and we don't want to frustrate anyone. All right, I think that is about all I've got. I don't know if Dr. Tiano, I don't know if you want to add anything before we before I sign everybody off here.
No, Mr. Rubin, I really didn't. Just to say, thank you to you and Mr. DeMeglio and all of our staff and our parents for the work that you've been doing and the work that still lies ahead of us. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate that, and I know people have been working really hard. Kids, parents, students,
Everyone.
And it's going to take all of us as we keep moving forward. So I just want to say thanks to everyone for tuning in. I am going to hit stop on the record. Like I said, I'll post this and email it out. Those of you who are here to watch me live, I appreciate it. And we'll be sending out some information for the seniors about graduation. I don't know how many senior parents, senior students are here right now, but we will have information very specific about graduation being sent out the beginning of next week about how to sign up for your graduation tickets and seats. And we hope it'll be a really easy solution. And we will we'll be in touch with everything else for you underclassmen very, very soon. Until then, hope everybody got all their work done. I hope all your questions got answered. If you need me or Mr. DeMeglio for anything, just holler. Oh, a question popping up. What about National Honor Society? So, good question. I'm actually on the state National Honor Society committee. And so we just had a meeting. We had a meeting scheduled for tomorrow. It got moved to Wednesday. National Honor Society induction will happen in the fall. For the students who would have been eligible this spring, it will be a fall induction. Most schools do inductions as fall, so it's not terribly different than whether we did it at the end of May or as soon as when I was an advisor, we did it in October. So it'll be for all juniors and seniors who are eligible. And then we'll decide as we go along in the year whether we're going to do another induction or if we're just going to keep it in the fall. The districts, chapters around the nation are about 60 to 70% do it in the fall, and about a third of them or so do them in the spring. iPads getting turned in only if you're leaving us. If you're leaving for Valley Tech or transferring or going somewhere else, there's probably about 18 eighth graders who are going to Valley Tech. Those will be turned in Monday and Tuesday, but everybody else gets to keep them. So take good care of them over the summer, and seniors will turn them in if they haven't purchased them. And for anybody out there who happens to be a parent of a rising eighth grader currently in the 7th grade, we should be able to get to you a date for our distributions and orientations by hopefully the 1st or 2nd week of July. Crossing my fingers on that. SATs, I am in touch with, I've been in touch with the College Board about adding the school day administration for us in Uxbridge in September. It may require us to do some really clever scheduling with our underclassmen, especially if we need to socially distance. Bellingham will have, they're working with the College Board on the September date, as is Milford, and I believe we're going to host it in October and either November or December. Because I'm worried about the September date being difficult to fill in the other schools, we are going to try and do the school day one, which is, I think, scheduled for the 20, hold on, let me lean forward just here for a second. I think it's scheduled for the 3rd Wednesday in September, which is the 23rd. 4th, yep, it's the 23rd. And we may, I've been in touch with them about that. It's just a matter if we do that during the school day, what do we do with everybody else, especially if we have to have the rising juniors and seniors in to test. We may have to work that out on a central office school-wide level, and we'll do the best we can. But that right now is our plan. I do know Bellingham is working through the September date. I don't know if they've had it approved, and I know Milford was as well. We do not have the capacity to. Unfortunately, we were not accepted based on some of our size. Basically, our building's not big enough to be able to host another date. And so that was why we are not hosting a Saturday administration in September. I think that's it. I know Mr. Carboni was here briefly. I don't know. Oh no, he's still here. I don't think we have any updates on athletics for the fall, other than Connecticut passed out their rules, which maybe means Massachusetts is coming next. We'll cross our fingers. A whole lot of hope. A whole lot of hope. I think I'm going to wait a second in case there's any other questions that pop up. Going once, going twice. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy. And stop. Okay. I think that's it. So if anybody needs anything the rest of the way, feel free to reach out to me, to Mr. DeMeglio. I appreciate all of the support, all the help, and everything everyone's doing to keep the trains running on time. We appreciate it, and we will hopefully see you all not in Zoom very soon. Be well and enjoy the beautiful evening. It's nice out there. So thanks, everybody.